Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to begin again from the beginning of the Mishnah because we had a very small intro in the Mishnah, and we'll pick up from there in the Gemara. The Gemara says as follows: we're recording three machloket between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. Three machlokets that are all unique. And what makes them unique, Joey?
Bet Shammai is
excellent. Bet Shammai is more lenient than Bet Hillel. What's going on? Somebody put something in Bet Shammai's coffee. They went more lenient than Bet Hillel. That never happens. So we put the three examples in the same Mishnah. The first example, Beitzah shenoda b'yom tov, Bet Shammai omrim te'achel. So you have an egg literally born on Shabbat. So, first of all, happy birthday. Bet Shammai says, no problem, eat it on the birthday. Okay. Bet Hillel says, what a present. Bet Hillel says, lo tochel, you can't eat it. As we explained already, lo tochel doesn't only mean you can't eat it, it means also you can't move it. That's normally the status of something which is mukseh. Why did they talk about not eating it? Because Bet Shammai was talking about eating it. So they responded back in kind. Bet Shammai omrim, second case, Bet Shammai says, when it comes to Pesach, we know you're not allowed to have chametz nor leavening objects. You can't have the yeast that makes the chametz, okay? Now, there's a big craze in the world now about sourdough. So everyone has what's called a starter. Anyone know what starter is? Starter is your next child, okay? You spend more time on your starter. You can't leave it alone. You can't leave the weekend. You need a babysitter for your dough. It's majnoon. You have to stretch and fold. I understand. There's a whole process of the sourdough, and you have to worry about this little starter. That starter is machmetzet, something which makes something rise. Okay. Bet Shammai says if chametz is the problem, so chametz is one shiur, and machmetzet is a different shiur. Chametz is a larger shiur, the size of a date. Machmetzet, Shema Yisrael, it's making things chametz, small size of an olive. Says Bet Hillel, nah, everything is the size of an olive. Which means that who's being stricter on what's asur? Bet Hillel, because Bet Hillel is now saying even something smaller, the size of an olive, is also going to be a problem. Welcome. Okay, so are you guys here for Chanukah? That's going to begin upstairs, but you're welcome to join us for our Gemara class for the interim. 10 o'clock, we're starting on Chanukah upstairs, okay? Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Hashochet, Bet Hillel omrim zeh v'zeh b'kezayit. Hashochet chayav of biyom tov. If you slaughter a undomesticated animal or a bird on the holiday, how come it says undomesticated animals and birds? What is it excluding? Domesticated animals. Why? Because domesticated animals, there's no obligation to cover the blood. Okay? So chaya, a deer, a bison, something which is not domesticated, if you slaughter it, you have to cover the blood. It's called the mitzvah of kisui hadam. So if you slaughter chaya off on Yom Tov, or a bird on Yom Tov, halacha is, says Bet Shammai, yachpor b'deker v'yichaseh. You're able to use a shovel and dig up the earth and cover it. Fascinating word, the word deker. Okay? In Hebrew, you think of a shovel, right? What do you think of? How do you say shovel in Hebrew? Et chafira. There's no real word for it. Deker comes from the word lidkor. Dkor means to stab. Okay? That's what dekira. So lidkor ba'aretz is to stab in the earth. So deker is something that makes that slashing, stabbing motion into the earth, right? But we're using the word to describe the shovel part, okay? So yichpor badeker v'chaseh. You want to take, and really, what would that encompass? Encompasses a shovel, encompasses a hoe, right? That little thing, anything that's stabbing into the earth with a spade, excellent. Yichaseh, and then you're able to cover over it. Bet Hillel says, Lo yishchot ela im ken haya lo afar muchan b'ba'od yom. No, you need to have prepared earth before. If you don't have prepared earth, only way to get to earth is to do some stabby on the earth. And to do that on Shabbat, we said, is which melacha? Either chofer, or if it's large clods, right? If it's large clods, we said it's tochen, grinding, or if it's building up along the side of the furrow, what is it called? Boneh, you're building like a little wall. So it has multiple things that could be wrong with it. So Bet Hillel says you're not allowed to do it on Yom Tov. According to this, says Bet Hillel, so if you don't have it prepared, you can't slaughter the animal in the first place. Modim, Bet Hillel agrees, Shimshachat, but if you already slaughtered it, b'di'avad, shiachbor b'dekev v'chaseh, if you already did it, then you should dig in the earth and cover it, which is a big chidush. We don't know why. Answers the Mishnah, something that we will only understand when we get to the Gemara. It's mutar. Why? She'efer kira muchanu, because the ash of a oven is considered mukhan. It's considered prepared. So for some reason that helps us understand why Bet Hillel allows b'di'eved for a person to cut and into the earth, even though ordinarily they would not hold that way.
Even though he did not have the effort before?
Correct. So licha techila, we say no chicken for you. But if you already slaughtered the chicken, right? Then b'di'avad, then we tell you, not only do we say, okay, you slaughtered the chicken, eat the chicken, we say you should cover the earth because there's a mitzvah of kisui, even on Chag, even because it's kisui hadam. Says the Gemara, b'ma askinan, what are we talking about over here? Now, I'm preparing you in advance. The hardest week of learning Gemara in your life is your first week, or your first week in a new Masechet, because you don't already yet have the terms and the terminology, the language of the Masechet, shagur b'fiv, you don't have it in your mouth yet. So it's effectively, every line is not only teaching you the line of the Gemara, but it's teaching you all that stands behind it, the laws, the ideas, the concepts that stand behind it. So bear with me, the Gemara over here is a little dense, but we'll get through it like we have in all the other Masechtot that we finished. Says the Gemara, B'may askinan, what are we dealing with? What are we dealing with over here with this egg that was born on Yom Tov? If you're going to say that we're talking about a chicken that's omedet la'achila, what does that mean, a chicken that's ready for eating? You have different kinds of chickens. You have chickens in a farm that you designate that these chickens are ready for slaughter. You're going to use them to be able to eat. Then you have other chickens that are your star egg producers. In a million years, you don't want to kill that chicken. This chicken is my golden goose. Pardon the expression. It's laying eggs all the time. If you found out that someone slaughtered it, you'd be very upset. So, if you have a chicken, and this chicken is a chicken that you were reserving to eat, says the Gemara, Maita Mayu de Bet Hillel. So you have a chicken that's designated as food. It gives birth to an egg. Why would Bet Hillel say that that's forbidden? It's food that gave birth to more food. So it was already set aside for usage that was allowed on Yom Tov, food. So you took a piece off of food, and why would that be asur? The Gemara gives an example. Maita Ma'od de Bet Hillel, uchla de efratu. It's bread that gave more, or food that gave more food. It's like someone brought you a loaf of bread. If you're allowed to eat the bread, you're allowed to slice off a piece from the bread and eat the bread that you sliced off. We wouldn't think that that's a new creation on Shabbat. This egg was part of the food that you would have been allowed to eat on Yom Tov. So now that it pushed the egg out on Yom Tov, the egg is no longer usable, doesn't make sense. So it can't be that the case of the Mishnah was a chicken that was ready to be eaten, because then Bet Hillel would agree with Bet Shammai. If we have a machloket, it must be...
The egg goes, because the chicken's ready to eat, obviously the egg's ready to eat. That's what they're saying.
If the chicken is food, then it's just food that came from food. Right. So neither one of those is a problem on Yom Tov, because they were not muktzeh on Yom Tov. So there's no reason to say that a Beitzah shenolad on Yom Tov would be asur. Ela betarnegolet haomedet legadel betzim. What must it be? It's an egg that came from a chicken that was set aside to give birth to eggs. We don't want you slaughtering that chicken, me the farmer. So therefore, what is the chicken's purpose on coming into Yom Tov? Nothing. So the chicken is muktzeh. So that which it gave birth to on Yom Tov is also muktzeh. And it, for its own sake as food, you can't use. Why? Because when it came into Yom Tov, it wasn't yet food. What was it? Part of a chicken that is not allowed to eat. So good so far? Yeah. So therefore, Bet Hillel says that you can't eat from that Beitzah on Yom Tov. Maita Amahu, but if that's the case, says the Gemara, Maita Amahu de Bet Shammai. Remember the ping pong example? We spent this in other Masechet, where you have an idea, and we can't understand it. So we institute, or we bring in one bit of information that helps us understand one side. So what does the Gemara do? Okay, what about the other side? Then the Gemara answers the other side. Well, by changing something. And then we whack it back and forth. Where else do we have this? When we have Pesukim. This Pasuk, he learns it from this Pasuk. Ask the Gemara, what did the other guy do with that Pasuk? Oh, he uses it for that. Okay, well, how did the other guy know that? Because he's already using this for something else. And back, forth, v'chozer chalila. So, says the Gemara, so Bet Shammai, how is he going to explain why an egg born from a chicken that was a egg-laying chicken, why would he say that it's mutar? Muktzeh, it's muktzeh. Now, let me just be clear. Just a elemental, a foundational bit of understanding. Why can't we say that Bet Shammai that says that it's allowed, he's talking about an eating chicken. And Bet Hillel that says that it's forbidden is talking about a non-eating chicken. Why can't we just say that? Everyone can have shalom. Oh, say shalom. You know why?
It's been the Gemara. They argue back and forth. That's their job.
By the way, ironically, you're very close. Because if that's the case, then they're not arguing.
Right. Wow.
Now, the point is not for them to be arguing. But the Mishnah says that they argue. So if they're dealing with different cases in which each other would agree, then that's not a machloket. Then they should have said, this kind of egg is this kind of halakha, this kind of egg is this halakha. Don't bring Bet Shammai, don't bring Bet Hillel. They're both saying the same thing. Clear?
Rabbi, if
Yeah.
you pre-designate a rock to be a doorstop, why can't you pre-designate this egg-laying chicken and anything that comes from it to be edible on Yom Tov?
You're asking a question we'll have to deal with in the future. But you're asking a question in which the Gemara is not dealing. So in other words, we're not talking about where you figured out a way, like as an example. Let's say the guy said 1 minute before Yom Tov, hereby, he puts his hand on the thing, Yeverecha Hashem Yishmerecha, I hereby dedicate you an eating chicken. And the chicken says, right? And at that moment, he becomes an eating chicken. Maybe if you designated it that way, no problem.
As an egg-laying chicken that I hope to get the food tomorrow from it.
I understand, but you're instituting a case where we're relying on the person changing the status by its words, and then, but we're not talking about that. And not only that, the Mishnah doesn't designate a case where you created the status. It just says Beitzah shenolda. So the Gemara could argue what kind of chicken was it born from. But we're not going to argue on a case where I figured out how to make the chicken a basis ledavar mutar v'asur. Right there, we're coming. That's not the case of the Mishnah. So far we have two options. The first option we don't understand Bet Hillel, because if it's a food chicken, then it's a food from food egg, and therefore it should be mutar. And if it's a egg laying chicken, then we don't understand Bet Hillel. Bet Shammai. Why would Bet Shammai say it's mutar? This was muktzeh coming into the holiday. Now it gave birth on the holiday. It has a new status of food now, granted, but when it came in, it was set aside. That is the classic case of muktzeh. When something came in, asur, is now set aside for the duration of Shabbat. Answers the Gemara.
Does that include like a chicken that was slaughtered and then later on they found out that there's an egg inside the chicken? The chicken already slaughtered.
So that is a whole different question. Okay, remember, the Hidush over there, when we get to Masechet Chulin, we're going to discuss a whole other case. That's called Ben Pekoa. Forget an egg for a minute, because the egg doesn't have any halachic prep. The Gemara discusses what happens when you slaughter a cow. Now, you're taking the cow, you're still cutting up the cow, you get inside is a calf. You never slaughtered it. Whole calf. Terefa, an animal that dies without being slaughtered, terefa. But since it wasn't born, at that point, anything that's not born is considered to be a part of the mother. You could have that cow, the calf, no shechita necessary. Or perhaps more specifically and more correctly stated, not no shechita necessary, it had its shechita on its mother's neck. Clear?
Not only that,
Because it was part of it.
Ben Kua, you could eat every part of the animal, even Ever Menachai and all the things inside, 100% glad kosher.
Yes. Why? Why? Because at this point, it's just a piece in the mother. It's what's it called? Gid Anasheh is not the Gid Anasheh of the mother. The mother's is the Gid Anasheh. It's in the back leg of the mother. So on that animal, right? It has a status of just a piece of meat within its mother. Okay, good. So that is part of the case that you're describing when you slaughter that chicken.
By the way, many years ago,
But the egg was
I
not
was
in the
thinking
olam.
of starting,
One second.
of starting a farm, breeding farm for Ben Kua. I asked the Chaim Kanievsky, and he told me lekatchila you could do it, but yet there is an inyan of marit ayin. But lekatchila you could do it, and you could save more than 30% on glad kosher because there's no issue whatsoever.
I know it sounds a little cruel to me. I'm not sure.
I'm not looking for investors, don't worry.
Exactly. You say 30%. But only kill pregnant cows here. Okay. It's fine. So far the Gemara says, what are we leaving with? We're talking about a chicken that is the type of chicken that is held for giving laying eggs. So therefore it's muktzeh when it comes into Shabbat. And we're not sure why would Bet Shammai say that that's allowed. Mai tamayu de Bet Shammai. Now I'm going to need you, remember the tennis match? I'm going to need you to hold, in Jewish, in Yiddish they'd say, halt cup. You know what that means? Literally, it means this. Hold your cup. Figuratively, it means hold your head, like in it. So don't ask questions until we finish the run, because it's going to be one of these. Okay? Says the Gemara like this. Umay kusha. What's the question? Dilma, what is it you're bothered about Bet Shammai saying it's not muktzeh? Dilma Bet Shammai let lahu muktzeh. Maybe Bet Shammai does not hold of muktzeh. He don't agree with the whole concept of muktzeh. Is that what the Gemara says? No. Nobody disagrees with the whole concept of muktzeh. Why not? Remember what I told you when we had the intro. What does it say in Nehemiah? Im tashib mishabat raglecha asot cheftecha beyom kodshi v'karata l'shabat oneg l'kdosh ha'im mechubad. Right? To walk your walk, and to midaber davar, and to talk your talk. If you can't walk the walk of the week on Shabbat, you can't talk the talk of the week on Shabbat. Shelo yeh hiluchacha, shelo yeh diburcha biyom chol, ki hilucha and ki diburcha biyom Shabbat. So you for sure cannot move physical weekday objects and interact with them on Shabbat. Everybody holds of a broad baseline of muktzeh. But there are those that widen it. Who is the person that widens it to encompass more things? Rabbi Yehuda. And who narrows the field of muktzeh? Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon is called en muktzeh. It doesn't mean that there's no muktzeh. It means that the application of muktzeh is very narrow.
So that would be Shammai as well.
So the Gemara is now going to try and pair Bet Shammai Bet Hillel along the XY axis of Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, maybe Bet Shammai does not hold the muktzeh. So even though you have an egg-laying chicken and you're saying it's muktzeh, so whatever comes out of it is muktzeh. Bet Shammai says, yeah, that whole muktzeh thing doesn't really apply here. Only going to apply it in the most strict of cases of muktzeh, not here. Says the Gemara, maybe Bet Shammai holds in muktzeh. Letlu muktzeh. Kasalka daitin. Ask the Gemara, that's what you think? Kasalka daitin. That's what you put your mind on? You think that that's the case? Afilu man deshari b'muktzeh b'nolad asar. That can't be. We hold that even if you would say that muktzeh is allowed, nolad is the strictest cases of muktzeh. Why? Let's go back. What is a classic case of muktzeh? Something which you did not put aside before Shabbat. Nolad is much worse. It didn't exist. You said it so beautifully. It's not was. I love that. It's not was. Doesn't exist. So something that existed that I didn't set aside, that's the classic case of muktzeh. You want to tell me you don't hold to that, fine. But something that was not in the world, it's not was. I love that. We have to be using that forever, right? So something like that, there's no. How could you say that Bet Shammai would disagree that that would be asur? So it can't be that the reason why Bet Shammai is saying it's mutar is because he's going like let lahu mukseh, he doesn't hold mukseh like Rabbi Shimon. Can't be, because everyone would agree that nolad is definitely part of the mukseh that's asur, because it's not was. Says the Gemara, Maita Mayu de Bet Shammai. So therefore, what is the reason of Bet Shammai? Amar Rav Nachman says, Le'olam b'tarnigolet ha'omedet legadel betzim. What is our case? The case refers to, like you said, a chicken that is designated to lay eggs. So therefore, what is it? Muktzeh. Udi'itle muktzeh itle nolad. And the one that holds muktzeh is asur, also holds nolad is asur. Udeletle muktzeh, and if someone holds, I don't know why the meeting just shut off. Hold on. Mechila, sorry, 1 second. I'm just trying to let the Zoom guys back in. Are you on the Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
You are. I'm not sure. It just shut off the Zoom.
You want to go to Harry's Zoom?
Maybe if someone else has a Zoom. Okay? So we'll just continue until we figure it out. So the itle nolad. So therefore, someone who holds mukseh also holds nolad is asur. Udeletle mukseh, and someone who does not hold mukseh, letle nolad. Rav Nachman says that what you just said is correct. If you don't hold mukseh, you don't hold nolad's mukseh either. No problem. If you hold mukseh, you hold nolad is. So we just asked, how could that be? Rav Nachman is going to need to prove what he said. Says Rav Nachman, let's give you an example. Bet Shammai ki Rabbi Shimon, ubet Hillel ki Rabbi Yehuda. Bet Shammai is going to hold like Rabbi Shimon, and Bet Hillel is going to hold like Rabbi Yehuda. As we said earlier, they the two axes are lining up. Sorry, axes are lining up. No axes, no backsies. Are lining up together. Ki Rabbi Yehuda. Umi amar Rav Nachman achi. Did Rav Nachman really say that? That the opinion that says nolad is asur matches what's it called? Muktzeh being asur, and the opinion that says nolad is mutar matches muktzeh is mutar, which would indicate that Bet Shammai falls into the portion of Rabbi Shimon, and Bet Hillel falls under the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Could it be that way? V'atinan, we learned in a Beitzah Bet Shammai, Omrim Bet Shammai says, Magbiin me'al hashulchan atzamot klipin. Let's say a person has on their eating table, now, just to be aware, their eating table was not like our eating table. What do we have as an eating table? You have a dining room table. By them, they would eat reclining on chase lounges. Not to give a free shout out to the bank, but CHAISE lounges, okay? And they would bring them a table. Chaise. So they would bring them on the chase chaise lounges. It would bring them these tables, okay? And on these tables they would put food. What would they do when the food was done,
Put it on the ground.
they would take away the table. In fact, fascinating, in the laws of meat and milk, one of the things that we talk about is the idea that when they would have the table, they would siluk hashulchan. They would take away the table that had the milk on it, then you could have another table and have meat on it. Okay? Another opinion one of the opinions is that you could do it in the flip side of basar to that's only, of course, according to the opinion, the one opinion of siluk hashulchan, which is the sha'achat. Either way, the point I'm making is the table was removable. So says Beit Shammai, if you have bones and shells on the table after you were eating in the morning, you were eating at the meal. So now those shells and those bones, when you started eating your piece of chicken, it was food. What is it now? Nothing. Garbage, waste. Has no use on Shabbat. So therefore, shells and bones should be mukseh. Says Beit Shammai, you're allowed to pick up magbiim al shulchan. You're allowed to pick up the bones and the shells and throw them away. Beit Shammai says. Beit Hillel says no. Misaleket hatavla. You take away the table. Okay, the table has on it the bones and the shells, and you shake off the table. Just by the way, to be clear, I don't know if you ever had one of these eating experiences. Have you ever had that? Where they serve a bunch of food on the table in the middle, and they have like paper on it, and everyone just puts food on their part of the table. Old school, they ate on the table. What was their table? Their table was our plates. Tzalachat. So when we're talking over here about removing the table with the bones and the shells, what are we talking about? We're talking about like taking the plate. That would be the equivalent. So Beit Hillel says, what do? You take the object that's holding the mukseh, you bring it to the kitchen, you shake it in the garbage, no problem. But what did Beit Shammai just tell you? Beit Shammai told you that these bones and these shells, the halakha is, what do? You're able to remove them. And Beit Hillel says, what do? You have to move the table itself. Ve'amar Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman said on this, Braita, Anu en lanu ela Bet Shammai k'Rabbi Yehuda, uBeit Hillel k'Rabbi Shimon. We hold that Bet Shammai is like Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon. Bet Shammai is saying like Rabbi Yehuda, Bet Hillel is saying Rabbi Shimon.
It's the opposite.
Right? It's the opposite. So let's just be clear. Rabbi Nachman just told you in our Mishnah that Bet Hillel says strict. Why? Because they hold like the strict one. Who's that? Rabbi Yehuda. Bet Shammai goes lenient because they're like who? Like the lenient one, Rabbi Shimon. Lenient. So that's how Rav Nachman just set up the axes. But in the case of the Mishnah over there, where the Mishnah said Bet Shammai is lenient and Bet Hillel is strict, what did Rav Nachman do? He flipped the Mishnah. He said to the Mishnah, listen, I don't know what you're going on over there, but I learned the Mishnah the other way. That Bet Shammai is going according to the strict opinion, and Bet Hillel is going according to Rabbi Yehuda, the lenient opinion. So Rav Nachman, you can't have your cake and eat it too. As my dear friend used to say, you absolutely can, just not in that order. You can have your cake and then eat it. You just can't eat your cake and then have it.
Okay.
So says the Gemara to Rav Nachman, 1 second. You're telling me over here, Bet Shammai lenient is going according to Rabbi Shimon lenient. Bet Hillel strict is going according to Rabbi Yehuda strict. But then when it comes to the other Mishnah, where Bet Shammai is lenient, Bet Hillel is strict, you swapped them. And then you said that Bet Hillel is lenient and Bet Shammai is strict. Which way do you want it? Now the Gemara is going to give us a mind-blowing answer. The Gemara says, Rav Nachman tells you, Gabe Shabbat, that Mishnah with the bones and with the shells, that was talking on Shabbat. Where are we talking about over here? Beitzah shenolad b'yom tov. Our Mishnah is talking about Yom Tov. That Mishnah is talking about Shabbat. By Shabbat, the Satam Lantana Kerabi Shimon. The Tana gave you a Mishnah and it closed the Mishnah according to Rabbi Shimon. What does it mean it closed the Mishnah according to Rabbi Shimon?
They agreed on the halakha.
Let's review. Who arranged all the Mishnayot? Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. Good. Who is the one who's talking in all the Mishnayot? Different people. How about if there's a Mishnah with no name on it? Stam Mishnah, Rabbi Meir. Good. How about if I have a Mishnah that has a name in it, and I don't tell you anyone argues with him? I don't bring in the other opinion. That is what the Gemara is talking about over here. You found me a Mishnah which says a law and only gives you one opinion. The opinion on Shabbat, we have a Mishnah for Rabbi Yehuda. He encoded the Mishnah because he was choosing which Mishnayot to put in the Mishnah. What are the Mishnayot that are not in Mishnayot called? The ones that didn't get into yeshiva. Braitot, good, right? So those Mishnayot, I always thought I should open a yeshiva for all the kids that didn't get into yeshiva and call it Braita. Because there's already a yeshiva called Oraita. My yeshiva is not Oraita. My yeshiva is called Biraita. For all the kids that didn't get into the yeshiva. Okay? You like that idea? I asked Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky and he told me, Licha Techila. No, I'm joking. Okay. So, listen to this, my friends. This is unbelievable. Powerful idea. Rabbi Yehuda is choosing Mishnayot. What to put in. There's a Mishnah that brings only Rabbi Shimon. Doesn't give you the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. What is he doing if he only puts in Rabbi Shimon? What is he telling you?
Agreeing.
He's telling you the halakha is like him. So he found a Mishnah that was only Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon is lenient. On Shabbat, the laws of Muktzeh, lenient like Rabbi Shimon. Therefore, when it comes to Shabbat, Bet Hillel, I'm making him like Rabbi Shimon. That's why by the bones and by the shells, which is on Shabbat, what did Rav Nachman do? He switched it so Rabbi Hillel would go lenient on Shabbat, Bet Hillel. So on Shabbat, Satam Rabbi Shimon. Where do we find the Mishnah that was only Rabbi Shimon with no other factor? Titanan, because it says in the Mishnah, Mechatchina Tadiluim. You're able to cut up the squashes. Imagine like a pumpkin, a big squash. You're taking up a pumpkin that's detached from the ground. You're chopping it up in front of the animal in order to eat on Shabbat. Veta nevela, you have a dead animal that died, it's not kosher. What do you do with a dead animal that's not kosher, says the Pasuk? You throw it to the dogs. So now I can't just chuck a cow at a dog. You got to cut it up for them, right? It's not a lion. So you cut up the cow, you cut it up into pieces you put it in front of the animals. You're allowed to cut it up in front of the dogs, in front of the animals on Shabbat. Mokim lak lebet Hillel Rabbi Shimon. So by Shabbat, it tells you you're allowed to do that, even though it should be muktzeh. Why? It's extra effort to be able to cut up this stuff. So it's muktzeh, and you see that we allowed it. So you see that the Mishnah is telling you one opinion, only like Rabbi Shimon. We want Bet Hillel to go like Rabbi Shimon. So I'll put Rabbi Hillel, Bet Hillel on Shabbat, like the lenient opinion, Rabbi Shimon. Aval. But, Gabei, when it comes to Yom Tov, Tisatam Lantana, that Rabbi Yehuda chose a Mishnah only according to the stricter opinion, Rabbi Yehuda, Titanan, what's the Mishnah? Let's say a person has a beam on Shabbat, okay? He's using this beam to be able to build Beitzah Hashem, the building next door, right? Anyway, he's got this beam. That beam is set aside. It's an expensive beam. You don't use just any wood for a beam. The wood has to be very straight. The wood has to be very dense, the size, the stability. That's a more expensive piece of wood. Would you use that for firewood? No. The fire doesn't care how big the wood is, how thick the wood is. Doesn't make a difference. So therefore, the beam on Shabbat, is it muktzeh? Could you use it for anything? Or on Shabbat? No. Yom Tov, you're allowed to make a fire, right? So on Yom Tov, you have a beam. Could I take a piece of wood off of that beam on Yom Tov for Shabbat? For on Yom Tov? No. Why? Since it's a beam, it's muktzeh. Because you don't want it for firewood. It has no purpose on Yom Tov. You're not allowed to build a house on Yom Tov. So it's designated as muktzeh. You can't take a piece of wood off that. And what else? Also not from a koreh. Let's say you have a beam that it was in the ceiling on the beginning of Yom Tov. Mid Yom Tov, it falls down. Now I have a half a beam. I can't use it for construction, so I would think, perfect for firewood. Problem is, when Yom Tov started, it was set aside as a beam. So it wasn't firewood when it started. So both of those are muktzeh on Yom Tov. So a person is not allowed to take a piece of wood, shishbira. The halacha is you're not allowed to use that on Yom Tov. So you see that on Yom Tov, we're taking something that was created on Yom Tov, and what are we doing? Muktzeh on Yom Tov. And what are we saying? It is asur. So who is he stamming the Mishnah like? He's putting it like the strict opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Mukim Rav Nachman wants Bet Hillel to jibe together with Rabbi Yehuda, stricter. So therefore, Mukim la Bet Hillel Rabbi Yehuda. So far, so good? Right, friends, we're going to end with this, and this is very important. Why is he twisting Bet Hillel to be a pretzel? The answer is because whenever the Mishnah is stam with no argument, what was Rabbi Yehuda telling you? That's the halacha. Who does the halacha follow almost always? Bet Hillel, Bet Shammai? Bet Hillel. So therefore, if I have a Mishnah that says on Shabbat, I'm not worried about the muktzeh. And on Yom Tov, I am worried about muktzeh. What am I going to do? I'm going to make Bet Hillel hold that on Shabbat, I'm not worried about muktzeh. And on Yom Tov, I am worried about muktzeh. But why in the world would I think that way? Why would I make Bet Hillel, make Yom Tov less strict than more strict than on Shabbat? Says the Gemara, I don't understand. You just told me, Michti, man sat me lemesnita Rebbe. Who made the Mishnayot this way? Rebbe. Why did he go one way on Shabbat and the opposite way on Yom Tov? Stricter on Yom Tov than on Shabbat, when we know Shabbat is more strict than Yom Tov. Amri, we say, Shabbat de Chamira, Shabbat, that's a stricter thing. Velo atil zilzule, the people are not going to make light of it. So therefore, we can allow them to interact with Mukseh and we're not worried about it.
You don't have to create a fence.
Satam Rabbi Shimon, the Mekil, Yom Tov, the Kil. Yom Tov, the first day, second day, I don't know. They're already, you're allowed to cook. They're much more lenient with it already. So when it comes to Yom Tov, the Kil, they're going to make light of it. Satam Rabbi Yehuda, we went like Rabbi Yehuda, the Machmir. We went Rabbi Yehuda that we're going to be strict. We're going to pick up over here, Be'ezrat Hashem, on Tuesday. Baron Leolam, Amen, Amen. Chag Chanukah Sameach.